Hi everyone! Hope you're all good. Different setup this week, different one every week. Today I'm going to be continuing with the portrait theme. I'm going to be doing a painted collage portrait in a sort of cubist style. I did put on the drawing challenge, hasn't come out yet, but there is a paint yourself in a cubist, not paint yourself, draw yourself in a cubist style, create yourself in a cubist style, by which I mean sort of to break down the face into shapes and angles and sort of abstract the face so that you have you know, maybe exaggerated features that you've got a big nose, you want to make that bigger, or your eye could be up here, or you could have a profile of your face as well as having a front view, which is quite a common thing in cubist portraiture. If you look at if you're not familiar with cubism, then look at people like Picasso, and he's an excellent cubist. His cubist period of portraits are amazing, beautiful. I've done a bit of preparation beforehand, because and at the beginning of this video you will have seen a time lapse of that process. So just to quickly show you what you need to set up that. So I've prepared 2 pieces of paper. I used acrylic paints, and if you have acrylic paints, then you can use those, or watercolours, just water them down, or oil or gouache. Oil will be a bit messy and it takes a long time to dry, so probably not the best if you have got that. You could use oil pastels, and you could use normal pastels if you want to. It's just covering basically a sheet of paper in colour. I used a brown paper, and I've mixed flesh tones in various colours. Flesh tones are made by using white, a red, a yellow, a blue, all together to create. That's like a light flesh tone, and you can add brown, burnt umber, or something like that, to create depth, and more white or more blue to make, you know, or yellow and blue to make the green areas. Because if you look at your face, you've got loads of colours in your face. It's not just a flat flesh tone, which is often what we do when we're painting our face, is just do a flat tone, and it's not realistic at all what it's there. So I've got this piece of paper here, and I've just gone a bit crazy with all colours. Mix, it doesn't matter what you do, you can mix up millions of colours, and because essentially what we're going to do is we're going to cut this up to make our portrait. So I've got areas where I've got a lot of white, so I can use those for the lighter areas of the face. I've got dark areas, I've got redder tones, I've got a bit of blue in there because my face has got a lot of blue in it. My skin, sorry, not my face. And then I've got another sheet just to continue on. This is kind of a neutral base sugar paper, and I've gone over that with a palette knife and scraped back areas so that you get a really lovely sort of impasto technique, it's called. You layer on paint and scrape back, and so all you need is paper and any sort of thing that you can cover a sheet. So you could use oil pastels or normal pastels. You can blend them to create different tones. You need scissors, and you need some PVA glue or Pritt stick. I'm using PVA because it's just a bit quicker, but you can use Pritt stick, that's fine. And you can do it as big or as small as you want. I've also, quite fun with collage, just get any old magazines you've got, cut out anything that you think is interesting from them, so like faces or colours. I've got a little Che Guevara here. I've got Pete Townsend from footballer. I'm going to use bits of them. Nice, just a nice flat sort of nice neutral colour there, but with a nice effect on it. A woman from the Mind magazine, but she's got nice skin tone and nice hair as well. So you can use little scraps of that. So I'm going to be doing that today. And really, all you need is those. So once you've done those, you want to hair dry them or let them dry naturally. Doesn't matter. I've got all the time in the world at the moment. And I'm going to do mine on a blue background because white background's a bit boring. And I couldn't find a good white piece of paper, so I'm just going to cut this down. And I've got a mirror here. I'm using a mirror because I always think it's a good idea if you're doing a portrait to look at yourself. You can, obviously it's not going to be realistic because it's a cubist and it's collage, but you still want to get an essence, if you know, just for satisfactory value, an essence of what your face looks like. And I can kind of look at myself from the side here, and I can think about what's happening up here and my bad hair day I'm having. And so there, I have a mirror here. I'm not going to show you because I'll have to move the iPad. So. And really, all you want to start doing is cutting up your paper. Now, I'm going to start just sort of free cutting. Start with maybe like the shape of my face. So that my face is quite in a weird light. It's sort of dark here and light here. So I'm going to cut a bit out for mine. side of my face. And really, I think the best way to do this is just to go a bit nuts with it. Just cut some shapes out, and you can cut them up afterwards again, cut into them, add little bits over the top. I would personally just cut up your paper into pieces to start with. Maybe leave some of it so for detail and things, but that's what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to cut out some random shapes. You can see I'm just cutting out these shapes. And they look completely different when you put them on the blue background. They suddenly just sort of look, the colours change. And the interesting thing about using a coloured background is that it affects the colour that you've painted as well. So they'll interfere, which is quite nice. You can see that there, weird sort of thing. So I'm going to start cutting my face up. Cutting the paper of my face up. I'm just going to look at that shape that comes under my eye, under my nose, into my cheek. And I've done this with you before in the studio, and I've gone on about it a lot, is drawing with scissors. So it's the same technique, it's just free cutting and free cutting with scissors, not drawing on first, not worrying about what it looks like, just going a bit. Just letting the scissors kind of go where you want them to go. I'm going to whack some PVA on here. I wish there was a quicker way of doing this, but as always, there is not. I'm very pleased with my time lapse though. I've sort of learnt that that's the thing that you can do. Haven't yet figured out how I'm going to stitch it onto the top of the beginning of this video, but we shall. Put that one right later. So I've got a first shape here, first shape down. So this is going to be on the side of my face here. That side, sorry, where it meets. And then I'm going to get sort of another bit. Just cut out that there. Looking at the shape of my forehead. Oh, what have I done there? This is quite nice if you're not a fan of painting, because you can really get some interesting results for not having to kind of accurately depict something, or you just go really, it's really fun to paint the paper first and get all the colours on there and then just cut it up and see what happens. And the collage, the good thing about collage is it kind of informs the process as you go. You just kind of get something from it, and it's of course really like. I'm going to use a little bit of this one depth here for my eyebrow, and I'm going to do an really exaggerate. I'm doing this really fast. I'm going to do a really big eyebrow because I'm going to give myself a scouse brow. No, I'm not, actually. Well, it does look darker on that side, so I will actually just do that. Stick my eyebrow on. I might do it a bit higher than where it is, because it sort of looks to me like I'm looking down on myself on this mirror, and it looks to me like it's over to one side a bit, so I'm going to stick it up at a funny angle so I look a bit strange. And you can see it's starting to kind of take the form of something. Eye-wise, I thought I might use Shea Guevara here, little Shea. There it is. I stole this from the Camarados back in the quiet room. But there are lots of them, so I didn't feel so bad. I'm going to use, so I've got a really dark bit of my eye there. And I'm going to use his eye, even though it's too small. I'm going to use the bit where his eye goes like that. So his eye becomes inside my eye, if you catch my drift. So, oops. My eyes are sort of funny almond shape, and that's too not almondy enough. And this is hopefully, I've been trying to make it easier for things for people to do at home, as I always say, but it's not always possible. But this is really something you can do with anything. It doesn't have to be acrylic. It doesn't have to be. I've got Charity Man outside the window, so you can hear him. Oh, poor man. So my eye. Now I'm going to do nose. So I've got my eye there. I'm just going to keep showing you what's happening. And it's fun. And if you, I always say this, and I sound like a broken record, but spend time on it. Don't rush it like I am. And you'll get some interesting results from it. I'm going to do my nose, and I'm going to do my nose as one whole shape because my nose is quite I always see it, view my nose as a thing sort of stuck onto my face, because it's quite sort of, there's a funny line here, and these bits are very prominent. It sort of just looks like someone's stuck it on. So I'm going to sort of play with that a bit. And where the light is, use there. Oh, there's loads of shouting going on outside. Don't know if you can hear it. Kids shouting at that poor man with Tourette's. So nose. See, 10 minutes has gone already. How does that happen? Ah! I'm going to reinforce my eye with a bit of this black from this woman's puffer jacket I found. I'm going to just cut that down like that. This kind of looks like an eye to me. Oops, I lost my bit now. And you can, if you want, to save time, go straight in with, paint all your whole sheet with, your whole piece of paper with Pritt stick first. With PVA first, if you wanted to. Then you can just randomly stick and layer, etc. I've been loving your tonal portraits from last week. Me and Ellen did another one of those workshops on Friday, and it was great. It was basically the same again, but in colour. So yeah, it was really, really good. We're going to do a Frida Kahlo one in a couple of weeks. If anybody wanted the link, wanted to have a go, then do let me know. Right, so my face has started to take shape. It looks really weird, which is good. And I like the unusual. This girl in the workshop was talking about the unusual colours that occur in our face, and when you're making, you have to make sort of your initial palette up first, and you realise the more you look, the more you realise your face has just got so many colours in it. It's not like even just khaki, and I had sort of yellow and blue in mine, a lot of it, which is really strange. Think about that. In fact, I'm going to put Pritt stick on my paper. Why do I keep saying Pritt stick? PVA on my paper, so that I can just stick, because it's easier. And this is quite a difficult thing to do for myself. A difficult thing to do quite fast again. But yeah, it becomes very difficult to think of things and do them in enough time so that I'm not boring you as well, which is always difficult. No, nostril. Che Guevara again. Nostril. And these can be really like abstract. They don't have to be even look like a face. They don't need to be accurate. In fact, I'm going to do my other eye somewhere above. I'm going to cut her face out. I'm going to put her eye up there. My eye up there, or her eye. So mine is sort of. And I've got really prominent, I was saying this last week, really prominent philtrum. So cut that out with some glue, I think. So it's sort of round. Oops. It's round at the bottom. Goes right up to my nose and then joins my nose like that. Like this is rushed and messy, but you can sort of see, start to get the idea, and you just get nice sort of because you've painted the paper first. It's not whether sometimes we do collages. It's quite flat, which is also nice. You can use a mixture. You don't have to paint your paper first, but this is just, I suppose, another way of thinking about tone, as I've been talking about pertaining to these workshops we've been doing. It's just interesting what you can get from thinking about that, and it applies not just to faces, it applies to everything you do, really thinking about colour, tone, how colours interact, seeing colours when they're not sort of obviously there, and that would help a lot in the studio when we're doing our colour palettes and things that we work on a lot, and all of that will just help make that easier for people, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. So that bit of my nose goes there. Stick that on. Wow! Bit of paint. Yay. And then I'm going to rip that bit off because I don't like it. Quite nice to involve the torn edge as well, if you like. This isn't really sticking, this PVA. I think it's a bit rubbish. Now I'm going to do lips. My lips are sort of funny shape. Use this red I've got over here. Can't really see, can you? I'll do this. And I'm going to get my small scissors because they're really hard. And I make my. So looking at my lips, I'm going to cut them out. Ooh. They are very prominent at the top. Like to exaggerate that. Yeah, like I said, exaggerating features which you sort of notice immediately on your face is always a good thing because it's fun. So, and then I've got a kind of ball. It's called the ball on the end of my nose, Morris ball. My mum's maiden name is Morris, and all of my family on her side have this sort of, and it gets bigger as you get older, which unfortunately, like, what is this sort of ball on the end of your nose? So I've done a little round thing. I'm gonna add it to my nose there by my nostril. Whoops. I'm gonna put it over to the left because I think, looking at my face now, it kind of looks like it's over there. Other lips. What are we on? 17 minutes. So it might be that I don't finish this in this time because it's actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. But I can finish it and then put it on, or time lapse the end of it and put it on the end of the video. And there really aren't any particular ways you go about it. I think the idea is to, when you're painting, I know I've done this with people before, and I think people have got a bit confused about what I mean by painting the paper. And it is really important that you only use the colours that I said, so to make your palette. Otherwise, because a lot of the time people go in with pre-mixed colours like green and purple and stuff, and it's just not what we're looking for, because you're really trying to get the different sort of semitones, all the tones of your face. So if you only let yourself have yellow, lemon yellow or cadmium yellow, red. Any kind of red's fine, really. I don't worry too much if you've only got crimson or scarlet or whatever. Ultramarine, white, and a burnt umber, and just that. Don't like introduce any greens, because you make green with blue and yellow. You can make your own green, you see. So when you get pre-mixed colours, they just kind of they're not as effective, and you don't get the similarities in tones that you get when you mix them all. And if you have a palette knife, use a palette knife, because you can really mix the paper, the paint on your palette a lot easier with a palette knife, because the brush, it all just gets stuck into the brush, and it's a bit annoying. But if you don't have a palette knife, then if you have anything similar, like a butter knife or a like a DIY scraping tool that you use for as a scraper for stuff. Like I said, something that's sort of got a bit of flexibility in it will do, because then you can really mix the paint in a sort of methodical way without getting in a mess. And it all getting stuck in your brush. And then, yeah, so when you've done that, you really want to think about lots and lots of different tones on your paper covering, but just don't do it in like blocks. Mix it. Have it like really blended in. Don't have like green here, my green, and have white, and then because you'll end up with a sort of. It's not really the idea. This is a sort of tonal collage, so you need to just have those mixed in a way which, when you cut them up, they will blend and they will create that sense of sort of there is something going on. Maybe I'll only get half of the face done. Just have, what time are we on? 20 minutes. So I'll do it for another minute or so and then I'll stop. Just going to cut that out. Some hair. And then you can cut bits up, and I'm sort of placing it to see where it looks good. And I've got a bit of my hair there, so check that out. Look, I've got a toupee now. That's good. Little hair piece. Quickly add in another eyebrow. It's lighter. We'll do that sort of bigger. And a mixture of painted paper and what you can find in magazines is good. You can get some quirky little bits cut out of magazines that you buy, and you can even play around with some text if you wanted. Just go mad with it. It's good fun collage, and it's less restrictive, which I like. I always like things that are like that. I think I'll just do one bit more and then stop. Just gonna put that there. Oops. And actually, funnily enough, when you do collages like this, they can look a bit lumpy, in real life. They can look a bit lumpy and a bit tatty, but when you take a photograph of them, they can change dramatically because it becomes a lot flatter. So when you photograph them to put them on the group, when you've done them, you'll probably find, oh, I really didn't like that as a collage, but I really like it as a flat image. And I'm going to exaggerate my chin because it's big, sort of lacks definition, but then that's, you know. I'm going to put a tiny bit of white wherever I put my right there, on my nose there, where there's white. And this really looks nothing like me at all, and it won't. I haven't spent any time remotely looking at what my face is actually doing. Just showing you guys, but I think you can probably do a lot better than me, all of you. One more bit, and then I shall. Whoops, give that up. What shall I do? Oh, that'll do. So. Grand reveal of the so basically starting to get some sort of weird thing happening here. I quite like this bit. If I was going to work on it more, I'd work on this part of the eye, how it joins my cheek there, and then I'd work a little bit more on the structure here. I do look like I've got a toupee, and it's a bit big here because my face is quite narrow here, but I'm going to carry on working on this a bit, and then I'll put a time lapse up of that. But yeah, have a go and enjoy it. Don't be stressed by it. that it can be whatever you want it to be. Make it what you want. Bye guys.